Today we have Daisy Davis coming on. She is an NLP practitioner and she's going to help us to understand how we can begin to cultivate happiness and begin to intentionally use it in our lives. So Daisy, thank you so much for being here today with me.
You're welcome.
I wanted to bring you on to have this conversation about how we can intentionally choose our happiness versus just leaving it to chance.
Yes, Amber, because it sounds quite ridiculous when we think about it. We leave our happiness up to chance. Saying it out loud, it does seem quite ridiculous, but this is what we do. We wake up in the morning and we think, how's the day going to go today? We let other people's moods affect us. But the thing is, our brain is actually wired to keep you safe, not happy. So if you're listening to this at home and you're thinking, but I never seem to be happy, I can't find my happiness, it's not your fault. Your brain is actually wired to keep you safe, not happy. That doesn't mean you can't ever be happy. This means we have to get intentional with our happiness.
I love this. And I think it's that concept of intentionality, because wherever we put our attention or our intention, our energy starts to go there, and it starts to we notice more of that happening in our life. So from your perspective, how do we begin to make happiness very intentional?
Well, as I said, our brain is biased. It wants to keep you safe. So we have to get intentional. How do we do that? Let's look at the 5 pillars of health, which might sound very boring, but this is the basic, and if you can get that right, you can start moving forward. And the first one is sleep. How is your sleep? Because when we don't sleep, we get irritable, we get angry, our moods change. So we have to look at our sleep patterns. And most of us don't really have a very good sleep pattern. Maybe we're having too much caffeine, maybe we're eating late, that's going to affect how you sleep. So we have to have a pattern. And that would be, instead of staying on the sofa watching TV and just drifting off to sleep and then waking up at 3 a.m. and trying to go back to sleep in bed, obviously that's disrupting your sleep. So we have to have a routine, and that could look like after a shower, go to bed, do something relaxing, which could be maybe reading. I like to do a puzzle sometimes on my iPad. It's just very relaxing for me. Having a herbal tea. And once you start doing these things, it signals to your brain, oh, it's time to wind down. What you don't want to do is put the news on before you go to bed, because when you start seeing all that negativity in the world, obviously that is going to affect how you sleep. And also social media. Stop social media before you go to bed. Again, we have fear mongering, we've got more news flashes. Some things are just false news and we don't even realize. Or maybe you're watching things like other people living their lives and you're comparing yourself. So then you're going to bed with that negative feeling of, I'm not good enough, that person looks better than me, their life is better than me. So stop the social media. And when you get into that routine, you start signaling to your brain, this is time to rest. So that's the first pillar of health. The second one would be nutrition. Again, very boring, but it does affect our mood. When we have a diet of high processed foods and sugars, what happens is you get a spike in your sugar and then you get a crash. And if you're eating like this all the time, obviously you're going to feel irritable, tired, angry. It affects your moods. And there is growing studies that your gut and your brain is connected. And when we're eating foods like this, obviously we are going to start to, it affects your mental health actually. And people that come and see me, I always tell them if they're not sure what's going on with their lives, but just don't feel right, I always tell them get a blood test, because low iron deficiency and B12 deficiency also affects your mood. And I can tell you by experience, because I've had low B12, and when I used to get my injections, I used to instantly feel absolutely amazing. And I'd think, oh my God, I was actually quite low in mood and I didn't realize. So check your bloods.
And even B12. B12 specifically is low lethargy, so it's very hard to feel happy when you're feeling very sluggish. But vitamin D is also known to be very linked to depression. So having your vitamin D levels checked is very, very important. Because that's one of the main things that really affects mood as well.
Yes, and also because we live in a place where it doesn't rain so much. I know we've had a lot of rain this year, but we've got a lot of sun, so we can live more outdoors than colder countries, and you get your vitamin D from the sun. So try and go out, even if it's 15 minutes a day, just a gentle stroll or something. Get some sunlight. It's really good for you. So now the third pillar. This is in no particular order, by the way. The third pillar would be another boring one, movement, exercise. We know it's good for us, not just physically, but mentally, because when you have some movement in your body, whether it's a walk, anything like that, we're actually releasing the feel-good hormones. And also, if you've had a very stressful day, you're feeling frustration, feeling anger, go for a run, go for a power walk, go to the gym, and you can release some of that pent-up anger inside you, and energy and adrenaline. So we know movement is good for us. Now, a lot of people who want to lose weight, for example, they don't stick to it, and they say, I just can't stick to it. And I ask them, what is it you're doing? Because if you don't like spinning classes, why are you going to spinning classes? So if you want to get some movement in your body, movement doesn't have to be hours in the gym. It's doing something you like and moving your body. It could be a dance class, a Zumba class, swimming, whatever you like. So find something you like and you will stick to it. Not only is it good for your physical health, it's good for your mental health. The next one would be relax. What are you doing to relax? I mean, we've got the obvious things, which is yoga. You can try Tai Chi, Qigong. I do Qigong. That's like movements very purposefully, slow movements, and it makes your brain sort of calm down and stop. We've got meditation, which I do a lot of. And relax doesn't have to be those things. It could be a power walk. It could be, sitting in nature.
Reading.
Reading. It's doing things you
being
like
with friends,
and brings you joy. What are your hobbies? Exactly. It could be painting, could be reading, it could be knitting. I don't know. Do more of that, because there you are intentionally bringing more joy into your life. So do more of the things that you enjoy. And you can easily fit 2 hours in a week of something you like doing. There's no excuse. And then the last one would be connect. Who are you spending time with? Who are your friends? Are they toxic people? When you leave that meeting with your friends, how do you feel? Do you feel like depleted, or do you actually feel upbeat? So look at your connections, because we want to be connected to people who make us feel loved and safe and happy. And of course, we do want to support others. So look at your connections, because we're social creatures. We need to be with people that we feel loved and safe. So those are the 5 pillars of health. That's the beginning. So after that, we can move more forward to a bit more self-love. For me, I would say that is the foundation of your happiness. And why is that? Because when you love yourself, you know you deserve happiness. Now, we're all thinking at home, I know I deserve happiness. I want to be happy. But we look for happiness in all the wrong places. We look for it externally. We buy things. We think, if we have that watch, if I had that car, if I had that designer bag, then I'll be happy. And we're looking at it all in the wrong places. Everything we do, everything we say, everything we buy, our behavior, everything you put in your mouth, the intention is, it's going to make me happy. When you eat that chocolate, what you're thinking, that's going to make me happy. So everything we do, the intention is, it's going to make me happy. But when we look for happiness externally, it's only short-term lived, it's only short temporary. So we have to go internally. So self-love, this is where this comes in. When you love yourself, let me explain what self-love really is, because people ask me. Imagine you were handed a newborn baby, and your job is to look after that baby. All you have to do is make sure the baby is looked after. You would make sure your baby is not hungry, not cold, not too hot. Correct? As the child gets older, it's now a toddler, it starts walking. It's going to fall 100 times until it gets the walking right. You encourage that baby. You don't say, well, you're not doing it right, you're a failure, so I'm going to give up on you. You have all the patience, all the time. You do not judge that child. You're there for that child. When the child comes home from school and says, I've had a bad day, my friends didn't want to share their crayons, you are there to support the child, to offer, compassion. And then that child obviously is going to want to eat all the wrong foods and stay up late, and you're going to say, no, this is what you have to do because it's good for you to do X, Y, and Z. And you're there to parent the child. You love that child unconditionally. And for those of you who don't have children, if it's a pet, a puppy or a cat, you love that pet. Why?
Like it's your child.
Because.
It's your baby,
Because. And the dogs, they bark when someone knocks on the door, and you don't say, I don't love you anymore. That's what dogs do. Now, imagine if you could turn that in unconditional love inwards and love yourself that way. How would your world change if you loved yourself that way? And that's what we don't get. That if we loved ourselves that way, we had the same patience, unconditional love, non-judgment and compassion towards ourselves. And that's what we've got to do. But instead we don't. We have this horrible, critical voice in our head. Since the moment we wake up in the morning and we look in the mirror and we say, I look absolutely awful. I've got bags, I don't have a six-pack, my thighs are flabby. And that's just the beginning of the day. And then you try and get dressed for work and you think, this doesn't fit me right, I'm too fat, and then you're going to be late for work, and then you've got to take the kids to school, there's traffic, and all this time you're thinking to yourself, I'm such a failure, why can't I just get it together, what is wrong with me? And then you get home and you forgot to take the meat out from the freezer, what's wrong with me? So our internal voice is very critical, and we're not even aware of how we talk. So I would invite everyone at home to look at their internal voice. How are they talking to themselves? Because you wouldn't talk that way to a friend, and you wouldn't find it acceptable for somebody to talk to you that way, yet you find it acceptable to talk to yourself this way. We are our worst critics. Now, I want to make this clear. Self-love isn't egoistical, I'm better than you. Self-love is saying, I know I am enough, even if I'm not a size 8, even if I don't have a six-pack, even if I don't have all these titles, even if I'm not rich, I know I am enough, just the way I am, in my messiness, and I accept myself as I am. And when we are happy like that, we can project that outwards. Because when we leave our happiness up to chance and we wake up in the morning, we think, how's the day going to go? Someone else's mood puts you in a bad mood or makes you feel like you're not good enough. Why are we allowing this to happen? Everybody projects what's inside of them. So if a person is very critical, usually they are very critical of themselves. A person who's judgmental, they judge themselves. A person who's angry, they have anger inside of them. It's kind of like, I don't know if you've heard this little sort of paragraph that says, I was walking down the street and I bumped into somebody who had a cup of coffee and they spilt the coffee on me. Why did they spill coffee on me? Because that's what was in their cup. Basically, it's saying, whatever is inside of you, you're going to project outwards. So when you're happy with yourself, even if you know you are not perfect, loving yourself and happy within yourself doesn't mean you have to be a perfect person.
Yeah.
But when you're happy with yourself, you project that outside. And when you realize that everybody's projecting what's inside of them, you don't take things so personally. And actually, you might view things or people with compassion and not with anger towards them. So we've done the 5 pillars.
Yeah.
Self-love. Limiting beliefs is another one.
But can I just ask you a second? Like, self-love can be a very elusive and evasive topic for a lot of people. It's very easy to say, just love yourself, know that you're worthy. How can someone actually begin to do this if they are struggling with self-worth? Because I've worked with a lot of women, myself included, that have really struggled with self-worth, and it's a very long journey to developing that I feel good enough, just as I am. I don't need to strive for perfection, or the body, or the job, or the career. So what is like a practical path that someone can take to begin actually loving themselves and seeing themselves as worthy?
I think we have to realize it's not just like a destination. It is a lifelong journey. You might think you love yourself and then something happens and you realize, I didn't stick up for myself, then it means I don't love myself so much. It's a lifelong journey. And if we viewed our mistakes instead of as failures, but as learning, if everything that happens to us, we viewed it as it doesn't mean I'm not good enough. If you had a failed relationship, failed marriage, some people say it failed. No, it didn't, it ended. But you can learn from that instead of practice non-judgment. Practice non-judgment. I'm not going to judge myself because I know I'm learning and I'm going to take the learnings from that. Self-love is a lifelong journey, I say, because different things are going to happen in your life, which is going to require different parts of you. But when you've gone through some big challenges, instead of thinking, I'm such a failure, why didn't I get that right? Look at it, learn from it. And you're going to realize that all the challenges you've gone through in your life, you have actually become more resilient. And that is the gift that's left behind from those challenges. You become more resilient and you start to have a belief in yourself. Actually, I am good enough because I got through X, Y, and Z. Like I said, it's about embracing your messiness. You are unique. You see, no one is better than being me than me. No one is better at that job. And when you think about it this way, when your mum created you in your womb, in her womb, sorry, even if you had another sister or brother, there is no other you. That's it. And that is really unique to think that that egg had to go through so much to grow and become a human. And that is really, really magical and unique. And nobody has your laugh. Nobody has the way you walk. You are unique. And when you realize that self-love is embracing your messiness and your mistakes, it's not about being perfect. It's a lifelong journey.
I love this. Yeah. And I think it's like when we begin to have that, I think, like you said, it's like all a projection of that self-love and that self-worth. And I think what you were going to say now is like about those limiting beliefs that a lot of us have. And so what are some of those ways that we can reframe the ways that we see our lives, see ourselves even through our limiting beliefs?
Well, limiting beliefs, when we think about them, we don't question. So it's about questioning your beliefs, which could be, I'm not good enough. Okay, where did that belief actually come from? Our beliefs come from our caregivers, school, society. So if we question them, actually, because that teacher said X, Y, and Z to me when I was 10 years old, it doesn't mean that I'm not good enough. For example, I had a belief that I must be very dumb because I was in school. I'm talking about the late, like the 70s and the 80s. I had dyslexia. At the time, teachers weren't as trained as now. So I had a belief I must be dumb. Now, to be honest, there was only one teacher that told me that, but that stayed with me enough. It's just one teacher, not the whole world, to think I must be dumb. So it meant that I didn't try harder or strive for more because I thought, well, I must be dumb. When I started to challenge those beliefs on my self-love journey and doing the things that what I'm doing now, all the qualifications, everything I've studied, was because I decided if I love myself, I'm going to give myself a chance. And if I fail, it just means I am human. So we have to look at our limiting beliefs. Where do they come from? Who gave it to us? We also have limiting beliefs that have been handed down to us by our grandparents and their parents, and we don't question them. I read this book by Mr. Kenneth Castiel, and he has a little story there where a woman puts a piece of meat in the oven, and she always cuts the end of the meat. And her husband asked her, "Why do you cut the end off of the meat?" And she says, "Well, really, I don't know. My mum taught me this way. I'm going to ask my mum." She asked her mother, and her mother said, "Well, I don't know. Granny does it that way." So they asked the granny, and the granny said, "Well, that's because the piece of meat was so big it wouldn't fit in the pan, so I'd always cut the end off." So sometimes we do not question our beliefs. We just take them as that's real, that's the Bible, this is 100% correct. But when we start questioning our beliefs, then things start to change. So question, where do my beliefs come from? Are they really mine?
I love this. And how can we then start to redirect new beliefs into our system where we can see that we get to be happy, that we get to have enough, that we get to strive towards what we really desire?
Well, like I said, questioning the beliefs, finding out who you really are. I said, who are you? What do you like? Why does that belief, why is that true? And I would say that when you think that you're not good enough, for example, what do you believe about yourself for that to be true? That I am not good enough. What do you believe about yourself? For example, I can't do X, Y, and Z. I can never have happiness. I can never be in a happy relationship. Okay, what has to be true about you for you to believe I can't have a loving, supportive relationship? Then you might believe I'm just not good enough because I'm not a size 8, or I don't look as beautiful as those people on Instagram. We question, and this is the thing, beautiful people, and we can see this by superstars, celebrities, they also have divorces and failed marriages and everything else. So there's your evidence that actually just because I don't look like X, Y, and Z, or I don't have, all these titles, or I'm not a millionaire, it doesn't mean that because I don't have those things, I'm never going to find happiness in my life. Because one of the things we all search for happiness, we think, if I have money, then I'll be happy. This is what we all think. If I win the lottery, if I had money, I'd be happy. But the truth is, there are many millionaires that are not happy, are addicted to substances, have failed marriages, and commit suicide. So that tells you that's proof and evidence that actually money does not equal happiness. So let's question our beliefs. Where do they come from? Where is this evidence of, if I'm not good enough, I can't achieve X, Y, and Z? Question that, because at the end of the day, we have a choice. We have a choice what we want to believe in.
And we can start choosing to see things and do things that actually bring us this happiness and this joy.
Because I always say that, you can put as much energy into thinking the world is a horrible place to live in. Or you can turn that energy into actually the world can be a very beautiful place to live in. There are lots of evil people out there, but also a lot of beautiful, loving, giving people out there too. So when we have those thoughts in our head, those negative thoughts, and they just start spiraling and spiraling, we can use that energy instead of that. We can use it towards positive things. And that voice in your head that says you're not good enough, you can't achieve that, the world's a horrible place, we can never quiet that critical voice because the brain is wired to keep you safe. So it's always looking for the negative. But you can make friends with it, and you can question it, and you can say, when it says to you, you can't achieve that, you're going to fail, you're not good enough. You can say, well, if I fail, I'll learn from that. It's not going to kill me, I'll just learn from that. But you won't be able to do this, well, I'll learn from that. And so we question that voice, we make friends with it, and we'll realize that voice just wants to keep you safe. So you can say, I'm safe, I'm going to be okay, and I'll learn from this.
I love this, and thank you so much for sharing that. Is there a tool or a practice that you wanted to give those at home to start working with our beliefs or how words are so intentional to us?
Well, I want to do a little experiment on you. So those at home, if you want to do this now, try it. Because the words we use are so important. Because everything you say to yourself, you believe. And this is because we have something in our brain called RAS, reticular activating system. But before I get to that, I want to do a little experiment with you because just to prove to you how important your words are, because this is what we do. I'm an NLP practitioner, which is neurolinguistic programming, and words are very, very important, and we don't know what we say to ourselves, that critical voice, what we're saying. So if you wouldn't mind standing up for a moment. Okay, so we're going to try an experiment now, just to prove to you how your words affect how you think and your behaviors. So I just want you to close your eyes and just follow my instructions. And those of you at home, if you want to try this, this will be excellent. So I want you to imagine you have a magnet stuck on your forehead. And now there's a magnet on the floor, and the magnet is pulling you forward, and it's pulling you forward. It's a very strong magnet. It's pulling you forward, it's pulling you forward. Stop. I want you to imagine the magnet's on the back of your head now, and it's pulling you backwards. It's so strong, it's pulling you backwards, and it's pulling you backwards. It's so, so strong. Stop. I want you to open your eyes now for me. Did you feel yourself swaying?
Yes.
Because you just told your brain, I have a magnet stuck on my head, so I have to move forward. Now that's how strong your words are, because you know logically you do not have a magnet stuck in your head. But when you told your brain this, your brain said, well, she's saying it must be true, so let's do what she says. So that's how strong your words are. And this is because we have something called RAS, reticular activating system. And the way it works is it filters out all the information you don't want, it just leaves the information that you do want. You know, like when you want to buy that car, you see it on TV and you think that car's amazing, and then you go out and you see it everywhere you go, and you think this is a sign. No, it was always there. The only thing is, you had just alerted your brain, I like that car. So your brain said, we have to find it. This is the same. That's the power of our words. So every time we say, I am not good enough, I can't do this, I'm no good, your brain believes you and then starts to find evidence of that belief. So when we're starting our self-love journey, we have to be really intentional with what we are talking to ourselves, how we're talking to ourselves. And then with that comes healing. If you have trauma and pains you're not dealing with, you're never going to be happy, because you'll only have temporary happiness. To be happy in yourself and content doesn't mean life is always fantastic and it's not a toxic positivity. When you are a happy, content person, it means I know that sometimes I'm going to go through challenges, and that's okay, and I'm going to give myself and allow myself the time and space and the non-judgment to feel those feelings. Because until we address our pains and our traumas, we'll never be happy. And you might need to seek professional help, and that's not a sign of weakness, it's actually a sign of being responsible for your happiness. This is where forgiveness comes in. We have to forgive. And that's very difficult, but forgiveness does not mean what you did to me was okay. Forgiveness means I'm not holding you responsible for my happiness anymore. I'm going to let that go, and I'm going to be responsible for my happiness. Because every time we hold on to pain, hurt, resentment, anger, we're only hurting ourselves. We're giving a poison to ourselves. The other person doesn't feel it.
That's beautiful. And I felt the power of that practice. So I can only imagine how when we are thinking and believing constantly all day long, how much of our reality is going to be shaped around that. So thank you so much for showing that to me in myself today.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I had a really beautiful time talking to Daisy today. This conversation is so important because we do need to realize that cultivating happiness is our responsibility, and we get to choose to do so in our lives. If today's conversation resonated with you, you can contact Daisy at the Fit for Life Clinic, and she also wrote a book called Follow Your Dreams. So I hope you get to take away a message today about choosing your own happiness.